Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mexican Cultural Institute, the house of the public and cultural diplomacy of Mexico in the United States. My name is Beatriz Nava. I'm the Deputy Director of the MCA Washington, D.C. And we are honored to open today the exhibition, A Mexican Portrait by Martha Gabriela Driessen. We do so in accordance to the times we live in, with social distance, but with full heart and pride in the work of this Mexican artist who has found her new home in the United States, in Minneapolis, for decades now. A Mexican Portrait is an exhibition depicting women carrying flowers, men and musical instruments, children playing in cemeteries, shoe shiners, hat sellers, traditional dressers, life in some, which has proudly been presented in Singapore and South Africa with the support of the Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our embassies in those countries, and now here in Washington, D.C. Martha, welcome to the Mexican Cultural Institute, your house here in Washington, D.C. We would have loved to have you here in person, but we trust we will be able to have you here in the near future.
Thank you, Beatriz. That was a beautiful introduction. I am honored to once again collaborate with my country and my government in the promotion of my culture and art. I want to congratulate you and thank you and everybody at the Institute for the creativity and the great effort to continue to move forward given our times.
Exactly. But fortunately, we have the possibility to have this conversation today. And let me start it by the statement introducing your work, both at your website and even here in the introduction, in the exhibition of the meaning that your work is defined by the marriage of two cultures. My work is often inspired by my Mexican essence, my American reality, and the simplicity of life. And I would like to go through it. First, how do you keep your Mexican roots alive while living abroad in the United States in this case? And I'm wondering whether the physical distance has changed or altered your image of Mexico.
Wow. I love the question. uh, my Mexican roots are like my veins. You know, they run through my body, and I have always felt that that is not something that I can either lose or get rid of, because that's really who I am. The distance cannot change who I am or where I came from. I love everything about my Mexican being, and I make great efforts all the way to in Minnesota to acknowledge and celebrate my Mexican culture every day of my life, even if it's in some minor way, whether it's making a Mexican meal or listening to a Mexican song or tuning into the Mexican news, whatever it is that I can do. I mean, certainly speaking to my friends and family, I feel a great connect with my own roots and my culture.
And certainly that is something that is very important for us here at the Institute to encourage our Mexican diaspora to keep close to their own roots, while at the same time contributing to the American society as a whole. That's something that's very important for us here at the embassy to acknowledge. And of course, you do it in a wonderful way. And the third part of your statement, it's something that is very evident of your work, no? The attention to the kingdom of small details, the nuances of everyday life. Why did you decide to focus on these very moments full of life and hidden magic in the people and the moments you like to portray?
Um, I'm not certain what attracted me to that. I love the streets and I love ordinary everyday life. I think in growing up in Mexico City, I had a very diverse upbringing. I went to a private school, but I spent weekends and long vacations out in the countryside. My grandmother lived in a very urban neighborhood of the city, and I couldn't get enough of it. Just looking out the window and watching all the nuances and all the, small details of everyday life. And I just found it so gratifying, so interesting. It really spiked my curiosity from an early age. And I think that through photography, it has been a wonderful opportunity to embrace all of that.
Absolutely. And that brings me to something you mentioned when we first met at the beginning of the year, when we started to talk about this project, that you like to find in your work, that you find that your work finds perfection in imperfection, which is something that I also relate pretty much to life. So what do you mean by that?
Well, precisely. I think that, well, perfection to me is, I don't love the word. And I think many of us, without even knowing, chase it. And we're never going to find it. The more that we look for perfection, the more frustrated we're going to be. I actually like to look at the imperfections and understand. For me, I look at them as not as a bad thing, but as precisely something that makes us human and makes life perfect.
Absolutely. And I think a Mexican portrait is pretty much an homage to this way of watching and seeing and appreciating life. Tell me, how did you start a Mexican portrait project? I understand that it has been evolving, that the selection of pictures that you presented in Singapore and in South Africa is somewhat different to what we are looking at here in Washington D.C. So how did it start, a Mexican portrait, and where is it headed?
The very original idea was when I was looking at my work and I realized I had traveled a lot and I had loved it. But looking at my work, I realized my work, interestingly enough, in my home country, Mexico, and in my current home in the United States, was not as strong. And I thought, I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm just taking the opportunity to travel and run all over the place. But discovering new cultures and whatnot. And I hadn't looked back at my own, which is,
Right.
so rich. So I decided to strengthen my work, both in Mexico and in the United States. And from that, it just kind of happened. Then I decided that I would focus a little bit more on Mexican people living in the United States, which is precisely my case. Then I realized that what I was photographing in Mexico and what I was photographing here in the United States within our own culture was very similar. And that fascinated me. It's almost like we're blurring any physical or geographical lines, because here, and I realize in other countries, it's the same thing with our diaspora, with our Mexican and peers. We still celebrate the same things. We acknowledge life in the same ways. We, whether it's a birthday or a baptism, we're still doing the same things that we learned in our country, from generations past. So the project itself, I guess my interest just continued to evolve and into how can I take all of this and put it in one thing. So I think that's kind of where I am right now, is really truly portraying who Mexican people are, regardless of the geography.
And actually, people is at the core of your work. And I'm thinking that in order to portray a moment of their lives, you need to create a bond of complicity, of confidence in the people you're portraying. Has that process, how do you do that? Is this process different have you find it different in Mexico, in the US, in places as far as India, where you have also photographed? How do you create that bond?
Well, it is completely different. When you do street photography and you just literally, you walk the streets and often in neighborhoods or towns that you've never been, and it's a discovery, and it's also a discovery of the culture and the people. In some places you do have to engage with the people. In other places, they don't care. You can take all the photos you want. Um, to me, the best photos are the candid photos.
Right.
In Mexico, it is more difficult. People don't love it. So I do have to. I'm incredibly respectful. If somebody doesn't want their photograph taken, no problem. There's more life, around the corner, so it's not a problem. But you do have, I never hide my camera. It's always in plain view. uh, People know that I'm taking photographs, and if they shy away or they tell me that they don't want me to do that, then I move on. So in Mexico especially, I often strike a conversation because of that, and mainly out of respect, because I know
Right.
that the people in Mexico, especially in the smaller towns, they're doubtful about that. And it was very difficult at the beginning, but that has become an incredibly pleasant surprise. How many people I have, excuse me, how many people I have met, how many people I have befriended, and just gotten to know. I mean, it's a fascinating feeling when you're no longer a stranger,
Do you
so.
have a do you have a favorite anecdote of any of the people you met while taking this the photographs that are shown in the exhibition?
The photographs in my previous work in Oaxaca, I can almost tell you something about every single person. I had the opportunity to be there for an extended period of time. And that was another gift. It was wonderful because I could spend the time in getting to know the people, or not. There were celebrations like the calendas or other things that are much more out in the open that it doesn't allow. But there's other photographs that are a little more intimate. I don't know that I have a favorite moment, but I do have one that sticks in my head. There is a woman um, who was selling flowers close to the Day of the Dead at one of the markets, and she didn't want her photo taken. And I said, "Oh, no problem." The next day, I went by that market again, and I walked by and I waved at her. And on my way back, she waved at me, and we started talking. And she asked me why I was taking photos. So I said to her, "You know what? I'm turning my camera off, and I just want to talk to you." And I sat down on the floor next to her. I showed her my Instagram. I talked to her about
Right.
why I was taking photos, and she was very surprised that they were all in black and white. And so we struck a very nice conversation. And at the end, she said to me, "Well, if you want to, go ahead and take my photo." And I said to her, "You know what? I'll take your photo, but I'm not going to use it for my work because you didn't want me to in the first place, and I want to be respectful." I took her photo, and then I went home and in Oaxaca City, and I found a place where I could print. I printed a photograph and went back to the market and gave it to her, and she was very, very
Wow.
excited. She was so happy about that. So to me, that was that's been one of the best moments. It doesn't always end like that. It doesn't always develop into something like that, but that was just very reassuring for me that I don't have to have a photograph. I can still make a friend.
That is so beautiful, and I think that's something that makes art and art making so rewarding. The possibility of actually creating a conversation and a bond with someone. And very interesting. I realized that Oaxaca is an important featured state in the exhibition. And I realized that you decided to go to portray the calendas,
Mm-hmm.
the patron saint festivities,
Mm-hmm.
and the Dia de Muertos as well. Not necessarily the ofrendas, which are normally the subject matter of many photographers because they are very photogenic for sure, but the preparations, like you take snapshots of life in Oaxaca. Why did you tell us a little bit more of those trips? Were they taken in different moments? Uh, what was your interest in the calendas themselves and in Dia de Muertos? What did they? seem to be the preparations for Dia de Muertos and not the Dia de Muertos itself?
Mhm. Well, you're right. You know, the actual Dia de Muertos it is incredibly visual, and it's a phenomenal experience, but it has been photographed a million times. Um, I do it. I still do it. But for my work, it's hard to resist. What I really want in my work is a little more unusual, things that we often overlook. What goes into making an ofrenda is incredible work, and I don't want that to go without notice. Um, it it's just one of those parts of life that become integral to the actual ofrenda. You can't do one without the other, and to understand and to find more context and to kind of, almost, it's almost like being backstage.
And moving into another subject that of the exhibition, probably my favorite photographs of the exhibit are those depicting girls. We just celebrated the International Day of the Girl, and it's fascinating that the girls you portray are strong characters, full of personality and joy. I can think of the young girl and the ice cream cart, the girl sitting and the Virgin in Guanajuato, and even Astrid, the China Oaxaqueña, which is the featured image of this iteration of the exhibit. And I have seen that girls are also present in other photographic work you have done in India, for example, where the girls earn the spotlight and not necessarily the adults nearby. So what girls or portraying girls mean to you?
Um, I love girls and young women. I just find them to be, precisely what you said earlier, just so full of life and opportunity, strong women, coming to be. And I have two daughters, and perhaps, it's easy for me to relate to them. I do have a way to talk to young women and young girls. Um, Obviously, when you photograph children, you have to have the acknowledgement of the parents, no matter where you
Right.
are. um, and again, it's striking conversation, and um, all of a sudden not becoming a stranger. I mean, the young girls to me are fascinating precisely because of this joy and dream, and the future. I find it so beautiful, and they're so free and so innocent. It's just really beautiful, and I'm very thankful that I have a way about it. I mean, don't take me wrong, I have a son too, and I think boys are wonderful too. But um, I do notice, I don't do it on purpose, but I do notice that yes, girls and young women are very present in my work.
And they are the future. I like very much what you
They are the
say.
future, and they they need us to send them off for sure.
Exactly. And you give them a voice as well with this this personality you also portray in your work. So thank you for that, because that's a beautiful, beautiful subject matter and an important message to convey as well. And talking about the future and the near future and the unknown, well, the pandemic has changed fundamentally the way, the perspective of life as we know it. Uh, Tell us how has it changed your photographic work, your plans, maybe the photographic interests, especially because you specialized somewhat in street photography. So
Mhm.
what happens there?
Well, it's been a difficult year to say the least. But my plans were halted. I haven't been able to photograph as I had planned. But like all things, it's also been a good opportunity to reflect on the work that I have done and the work that I want to do. I think that sometimes we're all running so fast that we don't look sideways, and we certainly don't look back. And I think there's a lot to be learned if you pause. So I've done that. I'm not really sure how I'm going to go forward. Perhaps things won't change for a long time. So I'm starting to find new ways. I'm photographing I'm not just trying to photograph that which I had planned. So I'm trying to photograph, you know, the new in a new way, whatever it is that is present in my everyday life today. I still have my plans to continue to photograph for the Mexican portrait. I will go back to Mexico. I will go to the border. I will explore more in, you know, Mexican communities in the U.S. Other than Minneapolis and Chicago, which have been where I mostly have been. Um, that I can do. It may take more time, but it's definitely something that I will continue to do.
Absolutely, and we really look forward to that. And now that you mentioned the U.S.-Mexico border photographic work you plan to do, I remember you mentioned that when we first met. Can you tell us a little bit more of what you wanted to encounter there? What do you expect to do there?
You know, there's been a lot of fantastic work done at the border. Documentary, photojournalists, and even street photography. There's been a lot of really wonderful work done. I don't intend to do that because it's very difficult work. I want to stay within my same approach. Um, I'm finding people that I can access, that friends of friends or somebody's cousin and that kind of a thing, that can bring me into their communities, and I can then photograph everyday life. Again, I'm expecting to find life not unlike the way it happens in Chicago or Guanajuato. At the end of the day, you know, I'm looking for the celebrations of our culture and of life, you know, within a Mexican context.
Absolutely, especially in the border where the interaction of both sides of the Bravo River, they are so strong, and I'm sure they will be fascinating to encounter and portray. We are very much looking forward to seeing that work of yours. Hopefully in the near future, we will be delighted to show it here at the Institute, hopefully. And also the rest of your work done here at the US. I think in the US, it will be very interesting to see your own perspective of the Mexican portrait and the Mexican American portrait, or the American portrait here. The doors of the Mexican Cultural Institute are open to you, Martha, and we are very happy and very grateful to you for allowing us to show your work here at the Mexican Cultural Institute. The exhibition will be shown, as mentioned, in a virtual format, as a virtual gallery at our website, instituteofmexicodc.org, until the 13th of February 2021. Martha, something additional you would like to convey to our audience?
I would be delighted if you have the opportunity to see my work and somehow let me know how you feel or what you think about it. And once again, thank you to you, Beatriz, and to everybody at the Institute. It's just been a wonderful experience working with you, and we had to pause for a while, but I am delighted that we once again, that we are actually making it happen. So
exactly.
I appreciate sincerely the efforts in making it work and adapting to whatever ways we have to do it. But to be able to have the doors of the Institute open is really an incredible effort. Thank you so much.
No, thanks to you, Martha, and thank you to everyone who's listening today. We invite you to visit and know a Mexican portrait by Martha Gabriela Driessen. Follow us on our social media at MexCultureDC. Muchas gracias, Martha, and muchas gracias a todos.